us tools and templates for organizing your student's day this evening. Let me just say, let's see. And I'm having trouble. There we go. Our panelists tonight are Becky Frost, who is the principal at Jeffrey Elementary, Chris Harris, who is the counselor at Polson Middle School, Michael Kiefer, who is one of our instructional technology specialists here in the district, Jory Smith, who is a school psychologist at Daniel Hand, and Lindsay Fiondella, who is also a school psychologist at Daniel Hand. Hold on, there we go.
All right, again, my name is Becky Frost, and I appreciate you joining us tonight. I'm going to start us off on our topic of tools and templates for helping your child organize their school day when they are distance learning. So I think it's very appropriate that we start at elementary. As we know, all students need support with distance learning to some extent, but when you're talking about our youngest learners, we really rely on you, the parents, to be our kind of right arm at home. And it's a true collaborative process. But there are some things that we can suggest, and maybe some things that you've set up in your house if you haven't already, just to make things flow a little bit nicer and to support your children as best as possible. So here are some things to think about. If you haven't yet already set up a space in your home for distance learning, it's never too late. So we ask that you pick one spot, and if you can, keep it consistent. We found, especially at the younger levels, it's best if they're at a workspace, a table with a chair. What we found doesn't work for bouncing 6-year-olds is a couch or a bedroom, a bed in a bedroom, but to really designate that space as their workspace. So someone with good, room to write and lay out materials, but also a place where they can maybe get up, do a quick stretch, be a little scoochy when they certainly need to be. We want to make sure that we're limiting distractions, so that if at all possible, it's away from anybody else in the home that might be watching TV or younger kids playing with toys. And whatever's going to help them maximize their focus and attention, as you know your child best. I've seen some great Pinterest pictures of parents buying those trifold, sort of old school science fair boards and kind of making a cute little office for their child that has pens and paper and everything right at their fingertips, ready to go, a place where you can post the schedule for the day, and really make it their home office. Have some fun with it. Making sure that we have that live schedule ready to go is definitely key. Again, we know our 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds can't tell time yet. So we do need your support still to say, all right, it's 10:30, we're gonna log on for the math lesson. And you can help your child by being organized yourself, right? Making sure that as emails come through or announcements in the Google Stream for your child's classroom teacher, that you're printing those off or have those handy on your phone, ready to go before the day starts, so that again, it brings calm to your child, that they know exactly what they need to get done today. And every child is different in terms of what supervision they need. Some of our 3rd graders at the elementary level are more independent. Kindergartners definitely need somebody, for the most part, sitting there with them, helping keep them engaged and navigating the tech tools. Another key tip is at the elementary level, we have lots of logins, whether it's to Google Classroom or the Google Meet link, RazKids, Epic, you name it. There's a lot of information to remember. So making yourself a little cheat sheet of all of those usernames and passwords, and again, posting it right there in your child's office can really help with that. So hopefully one of those tips and tricks might help improve your day distance learning a bit.
Hi, I'm Jory Smith. I'm one of the school psychologists up at Daniel Hand at the high school, and I'm just gonna talk about organizing a designated workspace for that middle school and high school student, where they are becoming more independent learners and they have more ability to manage this a little bit on their own. It's really, really important as well for these learners to have a consistent routine and a consistent dedicated space because that assists with focus and productivity. Later on in one of these webinars, you'll find that we're going to talk more about keeping routines. So I am going to give a little plug for you to tune into that webinar as well. It's really important for you to suggest that your child chooses a location based on their learning preferences. For example, if they prefer quiet while they're working, perhaps a desk space in a bedroom or spare bedroom, desk space is the key word, would be good. If they require more assistance or they like some background noise, perhaps maybe a spot in the kitchen or dining room would be suffice. The location should have ample lighting and be positive and comfortable, but not too comfortable. The lighting is really important, not just because they might be reading or doing tasks, but also because we need to be seen on camera during live sessions as well. Really important at the upper secondary level for that. Also be sure that your monitor's at eye level, and consider the comfort of the chair. Does it have a back? Is it too squishy or something like that? Because we are asking them to follow their daily schedule. Really, really important for our learners is to try to eliminate distractions. So my teenager doesn't like to hear this while they're learning, but it'd be really important for them to turn off their social media, maybe put their telephone in another room, perhaps if there's another student home, turning off that TV, and even just if they prefer to have their cell phone near them, they can turn off their ringer. But really, we would like to encourage them to have only one piece of technology, so one device in front of them while they're really trying to focus on learning. Becky touched on this a little bit, but instead of kids getting up and down during classes, it would be important for them to have their essential gear and supplies accessible and organized in their workspace. So, if they're at the desk and they know exactly where to have their device, so their Chromebook, but also think about headphones or writing utensils, papers, any textbooks or anything like that that they might need, whiteboards, calculator, so on and so forth. Also, be sure that your child has their schedule for the day. We talked a little bit about this. And so not just having their schedule for their day, but also knowing what's coming up next. Do I have the bell schedule in front of me? And just really keeping track of that. You can set alarms and reminders for this, and I think we're going to hear a little bit about this later. But also a really, really, really important tool is something that is in Google Classroom, and it's called Week at a Glance. And in there is a list for all of your children's live classes. So you can find them right there.
Hi guys, Chris Perez here, 8th grade counselor at Polson. So I'm just going to discuss attending classes synchronously, and some of those benefits include live instruction provides the opportunity for immediate feedback. So students can ask questions and teachers are able to check in for understanding in real time. It is motivating for students to interact with their teachers in a live setting. This encourages participation, discussion, active engagement, as well as increased buy-in for tasks and activities. Students have a greater sense of community by interacting with the adults in their classroom. And lastly, there is the opportunity to maintain consistency of instruction for students with the hybrid model and also the full remote learners as well.
Mike, I think this one is for you.
Sorry, I was muted. Hey, everybody, I'm Michael Kiefer. I'm an instructional technology specialist here in Madison. And it's really important that you and your child familiarize themselves with Google Classroom. I'm also a classroom teacher, and so I know that the kids at Polson and at the high school where I teach are familiar with the new layout that we've all settled on as teachers in Google Classroom. And it's good for you to be able to support your child by being familiar with it as well. Understand that every day a student will log in and they'll see the format that you see here where there's a today topic, and that's where that day's work is going to be located. Week at a glance is always going to be there as well. That's where, as Chris mentioned earlier, you'll see your child's live sessions for the week, and they may change from week to week. So it's important to remind your child that they shouldn't assume that the live session begins at the start of class, because the teacher may want to do some work with the in-person students for the first part of the class and then have the at-home students tune in a bit later. You will also find a weekly planner. This is something that parents can access through the weekly email summaries that they can subscribe to. But basically, it's a week at a glance where they see all of the learning activities, the main objectives and learning goals for the week, as long as the tasks and homework assignments that students are going to be asked to do. And then under that, we have materials and resources. So any resources that teachers think will benefit students throughout a given unit. And then each week, teachers will move all of the assignments that we're in today into the week of category. And there will be a new week of category for each week as things progress. So those 4 sections are always going to be there. And that has really helped minimize confusion for students and not being able to find things for different classes. So what you're looking at here is a weekly summary that parents can subscribe to. Now, it's important to remember that parents can't actually join and enter a Google Classroom like their students can, but they can opt in to receive weekly or even daily email summaries that can be sent to any parent email address. So what's included in the email summary, I know it may be hard to view it on the screen here, but it's missing work, any upcoming work that's posted to Google Classroom, and any class activity, any announcements or posts that were put in the class stream, any assignments are all going to be showing up as class activity if you get that weekly email summary sent to you. And so you can't see any of those things, but you do get the summary because you're getting that weekly email. Now, if you want to get this weekly email summary and you want to know how, well, all you have to do is reach out to your child's teacher, ask them to invite you for weekly email summaries. But based on my experience as a classroom teacher, there are very few students on my roster that have parents that haven't been invited yet. Now, because we're bombarded with emails daily, it's very easy for that email invitation to slip through the cracks. So again, if you just reach out to your teacher and you ask them to resend that invitation, if you want these weekly email summaries, then that's something that you'll probably want to do.
All right, so now that we have the workspace set up and we know Google Classroom a little bit, these are just some etiquette tips or guidelines for when your child is attending a live Google Meet. And especially at the elementary level, you know, there can be sort of this feeling of I'm at home, I'm where I'm comfortable, I have my stuffed animal next to me, you know, that it's not as formal as maybe when they're here during the school day. So we want to make sure that our students understand that when they are learning online, it is just like they are learning in the classroom. They need to be paying attention, being actively engaged, following along with the teacher, listening for directions, just as if they would if they were in school. So some things that really help with that to sort of set that tone for your child is making sure that they're wearing appropriate clothing. We really want them dressed for the day, not attending Google Meets in pajamas. You know, we don't allow hats at the elementary level, so making sure that they're following those same you know, guidelines while they're at home. Also make sure that they have had their snack, maybe have a glass of water right there with them throughout the meet, that they've used the restroom. Typically at the elementary level, elementary level, we have, you know, pretty short mini lessons, we call them. So they're not attending for a long amount of time, and every moment of them is precious. So the more they have to get up and down, they miss instruction, and it can be distracting to others and the teacher. So making sure they're set up ready to go is very helpful. We have no problem, and in fact, we encourage you to sit with your child if you are able. You can help them again with completing directions or engaging in the lesson. Certainly, we don't want you giving them answers, and we don't want you worried if they are doing something incorrectly. This is a learning process, so we don't expect perfection, you know, in the first couple times that we are reviewing something. We also want to make sure that you are logging off your child when the teacher ends the lesson. So when the mini lesson's done and they say, all right, boys and girls, you're going to go off and do your reading on Raz Kids, please make sure that you're ending that Google Meet. as that really helps with safety. And just a few more do's and don'ts. I won't read these all to you, but one important one to highlight is the very last one, is that we really want your child in view in the camera. So cameras are on and that we can see your child. And that's so we can assess them in real time in the moment to see, all right, who's giving the thumbs up, who's giving the thumbs down, who do I need to try and re-engage through the webcam. So it's really important that when your child is attending those meets, that we can see them and see their whiteboard if they're holding something up. That really helps us to know how your child is.
Hey guys, as you would probably imagine, the Google Meet etiquette at the middle school level is pretty consistent with the elementary level. So just in terms of when students join their classes, all microphones should be muted, and throughout the whole class they should be muted unless called upon by the teacher. So if students have any questions or contributions, type in the chat and wait for the teacher to call on them, just as if they were in school and they would be raising their hand. And waiting for the teacher to call on you, so that's when they would unmute themselves, and that's when they would provide any insight, ask a question, or contribute in any way. And staying attentive, pay attention to your teacher or other students who are speaking. Some other tips, like Becky just mentioned, I won't read them all, but wear appropriate clothing. Dress how you would dress for school, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're doing school from home. So paying attention, staying focused, look into the camera when you speak. A few don'ts, don't share your screen unless asked to. Don't talk when someone else is talking, and don't use emojis unless asked to by your teacher.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Fiandella. I'm one of the school psychologists at the high school. So these are some possible supports for students, both elementary and secondary level. Kind of like a little bit of a try on what works best for your child may not work for everyone. So these are just different options that we found have supported some students. So for the younger levels, definitely penciling in some break times throughout the day. It is difficult to kind of stay engaged and focused throughout that entire time if you're online. So kind of taking out short little breaks of things that they might enjoy doing, getting them, recentered and back to be able to focus. The next tip is essentially, embedding some quiet time into the day. So downtime to recharge. Maybe it's a quick book or it's a couple 15 minutes of kind of doing something that they enjoy. Again, just a little bit of quiet time to keep them engaged, but also doing something a little bit different other than the learning. Another one is to remember, no matter what age your child is, moving around is a good thing. We say the same thing as adults. It's important for all of us to kind of move around. So if your child has a break during their day, or at the middle or high school level, they have a study hall built into their day, absolutely go outside for a walk or do something outside. Kids can go play. If you have a swing set outside, definitely go and move in that way. Just something to get you moving and going. It's also really important, depending on your comfort level, keep the kids connected to friends, either through technology or socially distanced activities. And again, it's what your comfort level is. And then some more specifics is, definitely use alarms and timers to help kids manage time and build work stamina. Whether those alarms are, dependent on specific class start times, that has been helpful at the high school level because, a lot of our kids will stop and start doing some of their work and then they miss the next class. So it's important to kind of remind of the timing and the starting, but also, building some timers in if you want to build the stamina of, hey, let's work for 20 minutes, set the timer for 20 minutes, child works independently, the alarm goes off and you kind of check to see how you've done in engaging that whole time. Another helpful tip is creating a to-do list and crossing off activities that they are completed. That to-do list can both be, pencil, paper. There's also a really neat embedded tool into Google Classroom in the to-do page. Within it, it kind of shows you, as you can see here, all of the bottom on the left side of your child's Google Classroom, it's really right in there. It says to do, and it'll show you all the homework that is due, there's assignments that are due this week. And it also shows missing assignments and done assignments. So a really neat embedded tool right into Google and their Google Classroom. Another helpful tip is definitely to encourage your child to have lunch during their scheduled time or snacks between meetings. It could be a long day as you're home and you're doing distance learning. So really important to kind of build those pieces in. Another tool at the high school level, all students were introduced to a weekly planner. It has, just trying to encourage kids and whatever, again, what works for you. This is a pencil and paper option. You can put in your exact times of when you have to be live on what streams. Again, what day am I in school is also another helpful tool, and different assignments that might be due. Another strategy kids can use is essentially using like printing out a weekly or a monthly planner, if you like the paper and pencil, and writing it in, or even using some of those tools within the technology. There's also various apps to help manage homework assignments. There's Google Keep, which is a sticky note system that's also part of the Google system. It essentially, does a lot of these things we're talking about, but it's a little sticky note. You just put in what you have to do, and then when you're ready to move on, you can cross it off the list. Mike's going to talk a little bit more about the apps that have been helpful for distance learning.
Yeah, so there are a lot of great apps that really encourage organization for your child. What I'm going to do is actually start from the bottom up here on that left-hand graphic. We have some basic school apps. So, for the middle and high school kids, the Infinite Campus student app allows them to go in and just check their progress on grades. And then there's also the Madison Public Schools app that can be helpful for events and activities. Moving up, and this touches on something Lindsay said earlier about encouraging students to find some quiet time, some time to recharge and decompress, because we all know that the hybrid learning model and just the world around us, during this pandemic can be stressful. And so there's some meditation apps that kids, especially some of the older middle and high school kids, might find really helpful, like Headspace and Calm. Our school media specialists have also made sure that the apps for Destiny Discovery and Sora are kid friendly. They know their logins to get into these apps, and so they could use these to find books to read from our digital libraries, and to also look up books to make sure that they're available. And in terms of the Google tools that we're all embracing these days, Classroom is a must-have. As I said earlier, we spent a lot of time standardizing our Google Classroom format, and I realized that a lot of these apps are geared more towards middle and high school kids because they have phones. But I think it's a great idea to introduce to some of our younger learners these apps on mobile devices that you have at home, whether it be a family iPad or an iPod Touch or some other kind of tablet, because they'll find all of their work that they do during the school day on Classroom through the apps, and they can access it that way. So the Google Drive, Docs, and Slides apps are really productivity apps. But one of the key organizational tools I'd like to see kids embrace more is the Google Calendar app. Google Classroom does integrate with Google Calendar. Any assignment that appears on Classroom will also appear on their calendar, and every classroom has a calendar. So as you'll see on a future slide, there's a tutorial that I put together showing students how to log into the calendar app with their madisonps.org account, and then organize that calendar by class. The Google Meet app, of course, is good if they only have access to a mobile device when they're expected to join a live class. And then, of course, there's Gmail. And again, I know it's geared towards our older students, but Gmail is a way that teachers communicate with students on their madisonps.org accounts. And it might be a teacher reaching out to a child, who may have missed a class and they want to get them caught up or find out about some missing work. So we've been encouraging our students to check Gmail on a regular basis. And we're also kind of training them on how to control their Google Classroom notifications so they're not bombarded with email. Speaking of email, we found as teachers that students do need the basics of how to email a teacher. They're used to using text messaging, which is a much casual format, more casual platform for communication. So you see some of the basics there that we're trying to encourage students to use, because not only is it just good email etiquette, but it's going to prepare them for the world beyond school. So moving on to the next slide, this is where you can see some of these applications in action. So I don't know if we want to actually show that, but these are also videos you can check out later.
Maybe having a hard time managing all of the emails that they're receiving during distance learning. And that could be a result of getting too many notifications from Google Classroom, clogging up your inbox. So there's a way you can control that. If you come over here when you're looking at your classes to the menu icon, and then scrolling all the way down to the bottom of this left-hand sidebar. And then from here, you can turn email notifications on and off. In addition to that though, you might not want to get rid of all notifications. You can dial in which ones you want to receive. So if it's a reminder for a due date, you can just leave that one on. And then you also have the ability to dial in the notifications for different classes that you're enrolled in. And I highly recommend getting the Google Classroom mobile app, because that one also allows you to dial in what kind of notifications you receive right there on the app. So you can maybe just turn on notifications for your Google app on your phone, but then have them off for email so that you can focus on the important emails that teachers send you. Okay, everyone, I hope you found that helpful. Good luck.
And just to plug that feature in Classroom, I will say that the reason I realized that was so important is because it came right from a student's mouth. When I was being interviewed for a news story a student was writing a couple years ago, and we had just introduced Google Classroom. When we had just introduced Classroom, the student wanted to know, are we going to use this more and more? We like it. And I was like, well, what do you like about it so much? And he said, well, first of all, the notifications on the mobile app are sick. And so that right there, like, let me know that if a kid is saying that about something and it's helping him organize his life, then it must be good.
So Mike, I'm just trying to get back to the main, to our screen. Can you help me do that really quickly?
Oh yeah, sure. Just escape. If you hit the escape button.
Right. Yep.
That should do it.
Yep.
And there will be another demonstration appearing at a later date that shows how students can use the Google Calendar app. So that's something that you can review at a later time with your child in that blank space.
And folks, these are just some additional resources that we've added that you're welcome to take a look at any time. Like Mike said, this webinar will be posted at a later date. So you are more than welcome to take a look at these and download them at your leisure. So we're now going to have a quick question and answer session. Becky, I think you were going to ask any questions that have come in.
Yeah, we do have a couple minutes left. So if you have a question, you can certainly type it into the Q&A or the chat function. One question that we have, I'm probably going to pass this one to Mike Kiefer. This parent wants to know, are you able to somehow show that class has started? Instead of trying to refresh, has it started? And then you finally get in and you feel like you might have missed something. So is refreshing kind of the best way to know that class has started, or is there another tip or trick?
Well, to me, the most important tip I can give for knowing when a live class has started is look at that week at a glance section, because teachers are required to put the start times of all of their live classes. If you get in and maybe the teacher's a minute late or so, I would just hang there on the screen. They'll be there, you know, within a minute. For sure. But I had that happen today where a student showed up 10 minutes late and she said, wait a minute, why am I always late? And I said, oh, well, did you look at the week at a glance? Because it has the schedule right there. And she was like, oh, no, I didn't. So the week at a glance is really your best bet to making sure that your child is on time for the live classes. But there is no like notification that class has begun.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I don't see any more at this time. Going once. Going twice. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Sherry, anything in closing?
That's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We hope that you found this webinar helpful and can use some of these tips with your children.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thank you.